This is the Fujifilm X-H2S. We're really lucky to be getting this camera very, very early, and that comes with some pros, but also some cons. Now, this is running extremely early firmware. In fact, until last night, some of the titles and logos in the menu system still just had question marks in. That means that I can't say this is going to have the full production quality images and videos being outputted from it. But this will be able to give you an idea at least, right? This will be running early firmware though, so there might be the odd glitch here and there. Also, I don't currently have a full spec list even. It's that early in the process. So I've got some headline specs. I can talk to you guys about the updated design because there are a lot of differences from what we've seen before, but this is very much a first look and we'll definitely be doing more with this camera in the coming months. Now, by the time you see this video, I should know everything about this. So if you've got questions, which I'm sure you will have, make sure to pop them in the comments and I'll try my best to get back to you with everything we know now. But as I say, we will be doing more with this camera, so make sure if there's anything you want to see, anything you want to see this do, you got some ideas of how we should be testing this, pop that in the comments too. I'd love to know your thoughts on how we should be testing out this camera in the coming weeks. But for now, let me start off telling you a bit about the overall design. The sun is changeable today. I'm shooting in height plus raw today because I can't edit the raws at the moment. There's nothing I can do with them because this is so new. I mean, there might be something closer to launch when you see this video, but as far as I know at the moment for creating this review video for you, I can't do anything with the raws. So I thought I'd shoot in height rather than JPEG just to give me a little bit more to work with. I have got too many lenses to choose from today, which is a great problem to have generally, but when you've only got a day to shoot, what have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lenses to choose from today. And I know what I'm like, I can never make my mind up, so I'll just end up changing lenses for half the day. It's a bad habit. Now, if you're used to Fuji, this may feel a little bit different because we don't have a ton of dials, especially on top of the camera. We've got a screen like the original X-H1, which I really like. I think that's great. And when the camera's off, you can see how many images you have left, how much video you have left on your card, and also your battery capacity, which I think is a lovely touch. You've also got a PASM dial, so it's very easy to switch between manual, auto shutter, blah, blah, blah. I think that's great because if you aren't necessarily as used to Fuji and you're moving across from, say, Canon, Sony, Nikon or whatever, this makes this a very easy camera to get used to. Also, if you're already a Fuji shooter, this won't be hard to get your head around. You still have a front and rear dial for, you know, shutter speed and everything. You've got an ISO button on top, which I actually really like. Again, a lot of the lenses already have the aperture on them, which you'll be used to. So I don't think there's a lot to get used to if you're a Fuji shooter or if you're shooting from another brand, which arguably I think is a nice thing. Now, if you like that feel of like an XT or even the X Pros that are incredibly manual, then those bodies already exist. This body isn't necessarily targeted towards you. So it's nice that Fuji have that range within their lineup, especially with the addition of this camera. Now, we do have a fully articulating screen. I know not everyone will like that, but it's there. I don't really mind it. I'm a stills shooter predominantly, and I like them. I know sometimes it is easy to just flick up a screen and look down. I do get that. But I think for the additional like half a second, I don't really get that there's a massive difference. Also, you have a viewfinder. You can still see the screen at that level. So I don't think it adds a huge amount into your workflow. On the side, in terms of ports, we're spoiled really. We've got mic and headphone ports. So you don't need to buy a grip for that or anything. You've got a USB-C slot here. And you have a full-sized HDMI, which is great news for the video shooters out there. In terms of card slots, on this side, we open this up, we've got dual card slots. One is an SD slot, UHS2, and the other is a CF Express type B. Now, I really like that. That means not only can you run dual card, but you can also make use of any existing SDs that you've got, because let's face it, most of us have a big pile of SDs at home. And then the CF Express Type B, you can go into as you see fit, or if you specifically need one for a type of shoot that you're doing, if you really need to get the absolute top performance out of the X-H2S, then of course you can just get one of those and you can decide which images are going to your SDs and which are going to your CF Express Type B cards. So I think the design overall is nice. The grip feels good, the shutter's good. I've not got a massive issue with it. Does it feel like an old style Fuji, you know, very metallic and heavy? No, not really. But does it feel well built? Yes, it does, which is really the important thing at the end of the day. Today I am also lucky enough to get my hands on this new lens from Fuji. This is the XF150-600 f5.6 to f8 RLM-WROIS. I think I got all the letters in there. Now, this lens is pretty powerful. Remember, this is on an APS-C body, so the equivalent focal length at 35mm will be about 914mm. So you've got some major reach with this. Now, the end of the lens is here. This is all lens hood, and it does actually zoom internally. You may get a slight balance shift, but that will be slight. So I think it's quite nice that it's all encased in this lens. I mean, I'd hope it would be. It is massive. It only weighs 1,600 grams, which I actually don't think is too bad. And a lot of the weight is to the back of the lens. So when I'm holding it with this X-H2S, when I'm holding it with this X-H2S, it actually feels quite balanced. I've got no problem hand holding this at all. On the bottom we see an Arca Swiss type plate, but of course you can just connect a normal plate to that if you want to pop it on a tripod. As I say, hand holding, don't think it's going to be an issue. We do have strap lugs here though, so if you want to just put your strap onto the lens instead, which is probably a good idea, that works perfectly fine. But it's really nice to have a go with this actually. It's lovely to use. At f8, you do have to be quite far away to get, you know, it really doffy, but it's nice and sharp from what I can see so far. And again, this is a pre-production model as well, so along with a pre-production camera. So I'm really excited to see what this can do when I've got full production models of both of these. Looking for birdies. It's not like my biggest skill set is bird tweets. When you're up at 600mm, it is good that this lens does have 5 stops of image stabilization. Now, the X-H2S does have 7 stops of IBIS, up to 7 stops of IBIS. But one of the specs we're missing at the moment is how that works, whether it's dual image stabilization, if they work together, if you need a compatible body to get that 5 stops. So I'm still waiting on that info. When I know it, I'll pop it in the comments. Didn't smash. Yay. At least I didn't drop that. Got babies over here, don't scare them. All right. Shh. 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 Stop it. Thank you. Right, let's just give it a go. I'll just put up with it. What about the internals of the new X-H2S? Well, we see a brand new sensor. It's a 26 megapixel X-Trans 5 sensor, which is the new one in their X-Trans lineup. And that is a BSI stacked CMOS sensor. Now, stacked is great. Stacked is what we like to see in these type of models. It means we're going to get better low light performance, better detail overall. It's just a nicer type of sensor, generally. Now, 26 megapixels is good news too. It's a bit of an upgrade from what we've seen before. We'll see a bit more detail, but it's not so high that we're going to be struggling in terms of the ISO performance. And speaking of low light, we also have a new processor. We've got the X Processor 5 in this. And between that and the new sensor, I would expect to see much better low light performance. What about AF? Well, AF is seeing a huge improvement. I don't have a lot of numbers around it yet, but in terms of just using it today, I've been so impressed. It's hardly missing a shot. Also, using the new lens with it, I've got the 150-600 with me, which again is a pre-production copy. Camera's very early, so I would expect to have some issues with the AF, but I'm not seeing that. I've stuck it in bird AF, which is, to be honest, one of the harder ones I've found across a lot of the manufacturers. It's one of the ones that doesn't always go completely right, and it's been absolutely brilliant. It's getting the eye every time. Really impressed with that. So I think AF is a big thumbs up so far. Now, continuous frame rates, we're also seeing a massive boost. Using the mechanical shutter, we can get 15 frames per second, 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, and with the electronic shutter, we see 40 frames per second. Now, that is also blackout free. So if you are shooting sports or wildlife and it's a bugbear of yours that you might lose the subject because of that blackout between frames, that's no longer a problem when you're shooting electronic shutter with this camera, which I think is really great news for a lot of people out there. Also for video, I'm going to get onto video a little bit later to tell you a bit more about it because I actually have a few more video specs. But we're looking at 4K 120p. We can also shoot up to, I think it's 6.2 or 6.3K as well if you want that. And the XLR adapter from Tascam that we've seen previously, you can use it with the XS10 and the XT4. I think it's called the CA-XLR 2D. That is also compatible with this camera, so you can use XLR inputs as well. Now put that alongside that full-size HDMI, the fact that you've got a headphone output in camera, you don't need a grip. All of this is very good news for both stills and video shooters. If you're a stills shooter, I don't want you to write this camera off because it's great at video, and if you're a video shooter, I don't want you to write it off just because it's got hybrid, really good stills as well. This is an actually good hybrid camera, so I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about video later. I think we've officially English countryside-ed out this camera now. I've got cows, a robin, some geese, and general bluebells and greenery. So I think it's time, as I've got 8 lenses, to go down to the coast. The light has been quite difficult today. Earlier we had sort of these big streaks of sunlight and then nothing and then sunlight again, and now we've got this like very bright grey white sky. And one thing I have found is that the viewfinder is really nice to use. The cup around it really holds your eye well. You don't get sort of like light flare coming through. So yeah, it sits quite nicely to the face, but also it's nice and clear. It's 5.76 million dot. 120 frames per second, so you're not having any issues with like refresh time. And the screen is actually quite nice as well. It's 3-inch, I think it's 1.63 million dots, something like that. It's okay. I actually really like using the viewfinder. It's bright enough and everything, the screen, got no issue with that. I just find the viewfinder actually really comfy on this camera. One thing I would say is that the light sensor is here, and I never like that because I find when you have the screen out and you shoot and you put it like, yeah, see, there you go, it went because it was near my jacket and my jacket's dark. Now, if I was wearing a lighter jacket, that's not going to be a problem, but it's just worth keeping in mind. It's something I never liked on like the Sony a7 III and that sort of thing as well. Much prefer it when the light sensor is like a bit more obvious and it's not affected by sort of just getting that close to something. Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me okay because it's pretty windy down here on the coast today, but the video spec of this X-H2S is actually really impressive. So what we know so far is that we get 6.2K at 30p, we get 4K 120p, so you can slow things down 4 times slow motion. You can also get 1080 240p, so if you really need to slow things down, you can do that in 1080. Now, you can also do 422 10-bit, and that's in Apple ProRes, and that does have to go to the CF Express Type B card. I think it's 720 megabits per second, so it's a really high data rate, and that would need to go to a CF Express Type B card. Now, if you want to use the HDMI port, you can do F-Log and F-Log2, which is a newly developed log profile from Fuji, which allows you to get up to 14 stops of dynamic range. So you can do F-Log or F-Log2 out of the HDMI, and that will allow you to do Apple ProRes RAW and also Blackmagic Cinema Camera RAW as well. I'm now going to hand this camera over to George, who's behind the camera today, and he's going to get some video and we're going to test those different log profiles. We're sticking around to get some test shots of the continuous frame rates for you, but I genuinely don't care if you like them because it is horrible. It's so wet and rainy. The poor surfers, I don't know how they've not died of cold. So I'm just gonna wait around and then hopefully we'll get something. Whilst we're waiting for the kite surfer dude to get going so we can take some cool pictures of him, I want to tell you about another new lens from Fujifilm that's out today. This is the XF18-120mm f4. This is a weather-resistant lens and it's also a power zoom. You can use this ring here, we've got a button, and you can control how, not quickly necessarily, but how constant your speed of zoom is. So you can make it feel quite manually by doing it with the ring. You can use the rocker to have a more variable speed of zoom, or you can press the button and that will give you a really constant zoom. So you have a lot of control. And all of that zooming is internal as well. You might feel a very slight balance shift as the elements move inside, but from what I can tell, with the little I've used it, it doesn't feel like a huge amount. Maybe if you're using it on a gimbal, you might notice it a little bit more. Now, as I've already said, we've got a short amount of time with all of this, and obviously I've had to put the majority of my time into testing the X-H2S. However, I will be getting these back. So if you've got some suggestions of what to shoot with this, please pop them in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. One of the things that apparently has been improved on the X-H2S is the rolling shutter. Now, there's a post here, so we're just going to do a quick rolling shutter test. We're going to do a nice slow one and then basically as quick as we can pan, just so you can see what this looks like. In my 2 little slides of information I actually got on this camera, which contained very little, one of the things was a picture of the camera next to this weird little square thing that looked like a fan. It looked like a speaker cover over a fan. And I couldn't really get it, but today, have a look at the camera. We've got these little screw mounts here. Now, by the time you see this, I'll know whether that's a real product or not. At the moment, I don't know if that's real. So I'm gonna mention it now that there might be a fan for this to help with heat dissipation if you're using, say, maybe the 6.2K or the 4K 120p. That might exist. So I will put a link in the description if it does, but as right now, I don't know. This has been a really interesting camera to test. I feel like it's very easy to get using, but there's so much more to it that I want to get my hands on. As I say, I've had a really short spec list for this, don't really know that much about it at the time of filming. So I can't wait to find out more. If you've got some questions, which I'm sure you will have, because this is very much just a first look, then make sure to pop them in the comments. I'll try my best to get back to you with all the information that we have at the time of launch. Now, also don't forget there has been those new lenses as well. We've got the 18-120mm power zoom on the X-H2S at the moment, and that 150-600 which I've actually used a lot today and I really did enjoy using. Now, I'm definitely going to be doing some more with all of this kit. Once we have production models, I really want to get my hands back on this. So if you've got some ideas of what we should be doing, how we should be testing this, make sure to pop it in the comments and I'll try my best to get Fuji on side so we can get some really cool tests done for you guys with this stuff. But for now, a massive thank you for watching and I hope you join me again soon for some more videos from Wex Photo Video.